I traveled to the end of the world, part 3, Drake Passage to Mainland. In part 1 of this video series, I talked about my experience booking an Antarctica trip with Road Scholar and their services provided as they took us from Miami, Florida to Ushuaia, Argentina. In part 2 of this video series, I talked about the amazing service experienced while on board our cruise ship, the MV Ocean Victory. So it's now time to talk about my exciting voyage to the White Continent, Antarctica itself. I lived on the MV Ocean Victory for 9 nights and 8 days, and it took me safely from Argentina to Antarctica and back. But in the beginning, I wasn't so sure I'd make it. A week before we were set to sail to Antarctica, my friend sent me a text message to a news article that read, "Rogue wave strikes Antarctic cruise ship. Leaves 1 dead and 4 injured." Apparently, less than a week before our travels, a rogue wave had smashed through the windows of about 6 passenger rooms on a cruise ship that was traveling to Antarctica. The wave broke through walls, trapped people in their cabins, and killed 1 person. And the ship that was damaged was twice the size of the ship we were going to be on. It was at that point I learned about the dangers of the waters we were about to cross, called the Drake Passage. What's the Drake Passage? The Drake Passage is the infamous voyage that all ships must take to get from Argentina to Antarctica. The passage is dangerous because it's where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans converge. There could be massive winds, waters, and currents in this convergence. Waves can get as high as 50 feet, and waters can get so treacherous that the Drake Passage has even been given a nickname, the Drake Shake. Even calm waters in the Drake Passage can make someone who's sensitive to motion sickness feel incapacitated. So it goes without saying that I was pretty anxious about the transit even before we undocked from the pier. But crossing these waters had to be done. Stepping foot on Antarctica will be our reward for enduring the wild waters of this passage, our so-called rite of passage. Day 1. After all the passengers were checked on board the ship, we all had to gather for a mandatory safety brief. The safety brief informed us all about the things that we should and shouldn't do while on board the ship, and how best to take COVID-19 precautions, and how to get medical help from the shipboard doctor, including for motion sickness if we needed it. Afterwards, all guests had to participate in the mandatory safety drill. So we all went back to our rooms, donned our life jackets, and after hearing the drill announcement, we calmly walked topside to our designated meeting areas. Once we finished the drill, the ship got underway and we headed towards the infamous Drake Passage. A few people ate the evening meal, conversed and had drinks, but others took to their rooms because the slight motion of the ship's navigation was still way too much for them to handle. On this day, we also were issued cool complimentary Albatros Expeditions protective parkas, which were really marketing promotions disguised as gifts in my opinion. But as it turned out, those parkers were amazing at protecting us from the elements. They also had like 1,000 pockets to hold phones, tissue, keys, and whatever other small trinkets you would want to keep on your person. So taking pictures in my parker and then posting them became my pleasure, and I hope it get Albatros Expedition the exposure they want. Day 2. Day 2 was mostly spent sailing across the majority of the 36-hour Drake Passage voyage towards South Shetland Islands, the first land masses of Antarctica that we experienced. The waters weren't as treacherous as I had expected, but they were still a bit violent for many passengers. The waves probably got at most 2 to 3 feet high. I lost my footing a couple of times as I walked from the front of the ship back towards my room as the ship rocked from side to side. Even though the ship was rocking and passengers were getting sick, we still had another in-person mandatory brief. This time, we were briefed on how our contaminated clothing could possibly affect Antarctica's ecosystem or carry bird flu. We also learned about the Zodiac boats we were going to be riding on from the ship to get onto mainland Antarctica, including how to safely get in and out of them. Because the brief was mandatory and the ship was actively moving through waves, many folks were slumped over with bags in their hands, ready to throw up. Eventually, I started getting headaches from the ship's motions too, so I went to my room and took some Dramamine, an over-the-counter medicine used to prevent motion sickness. The Dramamine helped put me to sleep, so I pretty much slept through all of the rest of Day 2's voyage. Luckily, my room was located in the middle of the ship, I heard that passengers whose rooms were further towards the front or the rear of the ship experienced the ship's motion the best, which means their voyage across the Drake Passage was the worst. Day 3. The morning of day 3 prepared the ship for our upcoming days in the harsh Antarctica environment. While the ship continued to navigate towards the South Shetland Islands, all guests had to, again, participate in a mandatory biosecurity check. This check involved taking all of our outerwear that we will be wearing when walking on shore Antarctica to the lounge for vacuum cleaning. And yes, literally a vacuum cleaning. Staff looked for anything such as seeds that could drop from our clothing and disturb the Antarctica ecosystem. Afterwards, we had a boot party where the ship issued us boots, life jackets, and lockers. These were lent to us by the ship, and we had to return them after our last day's excursions by simply leaving them in our assigned lockers. After lunch, we made it to Half Moon Island. We got our first glimpse of the iconic chin strap penguins, a humpback whale, and a few minke whales. Later in the day, the ship anchored, and the ship got its first opportunity to go ashore. The ship's passengers were split into several groups, and groups were called in staggered intervals for Zodiac boat rides. While one half of the groups took Zodiac boats straight to shore, the other half stayed in their Zodiac boats for a cruise. This was mainly because there was a restriction on the total number of people who could go on shore at any one time. The cruise was basically a ride in the waters surrounding the land. And during the ride, passengers had an opportunity to take in wonderful and beautiful views such as the icy land masses, different bird species, and of course, seals, penguins, and sometimes some whales. When the shore group finished on land, they swapped places with those who were taking water cruises. Both tours took about an hour. Interestingly, I decided not to go off the ship during the first tour. I just didn't feel like it. I stayed in the Albatros observation lounge, and I enjoyed the views and took pictures from there. In fact, I was the only one, I believe, who decided not to get off the ship, and it was totally unexpected by the ship's crew. It was so unexpected that the ship decided to just scan everyone out during the first landing. Although we were given key cards that we had to scan before exiting the ship, someone made the executive decision to just scan me out, probably thinking that I forgot. So after the landing was over and everyone except me scanned back in, they made a giant intercom announcement of my first and last name, asking if I was on board, and if I was, to call the quarterdeck to let them know. For me, it was pretty embarrassing. So at first, I don't normally like to give my first and last name to anyone if I don't have to. And second, I didn't like explaining to people why I decided to be the only one who didn't go off the ship. But after that debacle, I was pretty confident that it would be very hard for people to get left behind, since the ship had a process in place to make announcements if they thought you weren't on board. The rest of the day was pretty calm. We all had dinner, and my friend and I spent the evening chatting with other passengers in the Albatros Observation Lounge. Day 4. Now, the previous day's landing was on islands off the coast of Antarctica, but today was our actual first landing on mainland Antarctica. There were 2 time slots for cruises, one in the morning and the other in the afternoon. I decided not to go on the morning cruise, which was shortly after breakfast in Bayonne Harbor. There was no viable spot for a landing, so all groups only cruised around the harbor. After the morning cruise ended and during lunch, the ship repositioned to Porto Point, where we conducted our first Continental landing. This time, I did decide to go ashore. Again, the ship split multiple groups into 2 main groups. The first main group cruised in the harbor, while the second went on mainland Antarctica. During the cruise, we saw several species of seals, crab eaters, waddell, and leopard seals, and a variety of Antarctica bird and ice formations. Eventually, it was finally my Zodiac boat's turn to make it onto mainland. We had about an hour to walk around, and we were free from restrictions since there were no animal colonies where we were. I made sure that I took the time to run around and have a little fun. I ran from one side of the hill to another. I slid backwards down slopes, and I even took the opportunity to eat Antarctica ice.
You know, world, many people can say that they've been to Antarctica. Not many people, but many people. You know what many people can't say? That they've eaten Antarctica snow.
By the time I was done running around, I had to take off my jacket. Even though I was running around on snow on one of the coldest continents on Earth, the beaming sun from above made sure to remind me that it is a powerful element.
So here I am, made it to the 7th continent here in Antarctica. My boy Chris rolling up on me. The weather is nice. We got the cruise ship in the background right there. And if you can see in the water, they have a few boats right here with half the crew. Not half the crew, maybe a quarter of the crew. The way it's split out, a quarter of the crew comes on the land, walk on the land, while another quarter of the crew cruises, because they can only have up to 100 personnel on a continent at one time. So that's how they split that out to maximize what we do here. But it's beautiful. I get to say I did it. I know they're gonna have a few more of these while I'm here. I don't have any intention on doing any others, but I am taking in this landscape and I enjoy it. Snow, mountains, snow walls, beautiful white, crisp water all around.
Day 5. Day 5 was more or less the same as the day before in that there was a morning and afternoon cruise and landing. The bay was littered with icebergs and the captain had to be extra careful. We eventually anchored, and again, I decided not to leave the ship. But those who did got a chance to visit the largest Gentoo penguin colony on the Antarctic Peninsula, containing more than 6,500 pairs of penguins. The second excursion was near Brown Station. The highlight of this day, however, was the barbecue dinner that we had outside on the deck of the ship in the Antarctic sun, which I explain more in detail in video 2 of this series. If taking in wonderful views is something that you live for, this was one of those rare opportunities you wouldn't have wanted to pass up. The last main attraction on this day was an overnight camping experience on mainland Antarctica. A select few passengers paid for this overnight camping experience. Both me and my friend opted out, but there were about 20 passengers who all paid around $300 on average for this excursion. I had no desire to experience this excursion, even though I knew it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The truth is, I'm not that adventurous, and my fate was sealed as soon as they told us that whoever went on the excursion would have to hold their bowels and urine the entire night, and only in an emergency were they going to be able to use a shared container for avoiding themselves. I can't even hold my urine for an hour, let alone 8 hours. Anyway, those who were brave enough, they departed the ship around 8 p.m. and didn't return until about 5 a.m. Though they didn't go too far. A couple of Zodiac boats took them to a hill with an eyesight from the ship. In fact, I used the ship's telescope in the observation lounge where I spent most nights to look over at them a few times. Here's a picture showing about how far they were from the ship. I learned what they did from a few folks after they made it back on board the ship. They all told me that they had a great time. They got to know each other a little more, they danced, they sang, and they built snowmen. Most importantly, they dug their own graves. I mean sleeping holes. Their sleeping holes were all roughly rectangular and about 1 to 2 feet deep, just enough to tuck them below the surface and barely out of the wind. Here's a picture showing what it looked like to sleep from their holes on mainland Antarctica around midnight. Notice that the sun is still out. Unfortunately, I was told that not many of them fell asleep. 1, they were all anxious. 2, they were kind of forced to sleep on their backs. And 3, the sun never went down, which is a characteristic of summer in Antarctica. But they all made it through the night, and they were picked up for a return trip back to the ship around 4:15 a.m. Day 6. This day pretty much followed the same pattern as the previous days. There was a cruise and landing in the morning, followed by a cruise and landing in the evening. I didn't leave the ship the previous day, but this day I decided to experience Fort Lockroy, a historic site that was previously a secret British military base during World War II. Today, there exists one main building in the region. Believe it or not, the building is staffed by a 4-person team who lives there during the Antarctic summer season, which is from November to March. They live in close quarters and they have no running water, including no showers or flushing toilets. The base has been turned into a welcome center, and the friendly name given to it is the Penguin Post Office, probably because of the penguin colony living around it. Inside of the welcome center is a restored 1960-ish style living museum that showcases how it looked and felt to work there in the 1960s. There's also a legit post office and a shop, like legit. Thousands of visitors come off of cruise ships, purchase postcards, and send them off to loved ones all across the world. In addition to being a post office, the shop is a basic gift shop that includes all sorts of trinkets and clothing and books and other things that you can find in a normal gift shop, including bottles of scotch. I picked up a bottle of Shackleton's blended malt scotch for about $60 US. My friend picked up a few items for himself and for family back home. After our visit on Port Lockroy, the ship navigated to Des Moines Point for an afternoon landing site. I didn't leave the ship for this site. Other passengers, however, capitalized on this opportunity, and they used it to either snowshoe up the mountains, kayak in the surrounding waters, or simply walk among the seals, birds, and penguins in the region. The last activity of this day was the Polar Plunge. Call me crazy, but I wasn't interested in jumping in freezing waters in a region surrounded by frozen land. Those who were interested, however, they put on their best summer swimsuits and they raced to the mudroom after the ship made the announcement that it was prepared to assist its very excited and exuberant polar plungers in freezing their bums off. And one by one, each person walked from the ship onto an attached Zodiac boat and leapt from the Zodiac boat, plunging into the 25 degrees Fahrenheit water below. No one was in the water any more than a minute though. And after they finished their plunge, they climbed back into the attached Zodiac boat, walked into the ship to dry off, and they were greeted by a celebratory shot of vodka. Of course, the ship's doctor was standing by to closely monitor all the crazies. Again, the Polar Plunge was one of those amazing experiences that not everyone, including myself, can say that they've done. So for the adventurous, it was definitely worth the social media clout. Day 7. Day 7 of the cruise was the last day that included Zodiac cruises and landings. I was already cruised out by this day, so again, I decided not to leave the ship. For those who stayed on board, there were multiple lectures given throughout the day. There were educational lectures about the Shackleton Odyssey, the history of Antarctic tourism, and finally, a lecture about sails. Then, in the evening, we had a good laugh watching footage from the previous day's Polar Plunge. As far as the day's excursions went, in the morning, after a bit of cruising around in the Lamar Channel, the ship eventually docked at Peterman Island, which provided plenty of opportunities to see more Adele and Gentoo penguins, and also allowed for a short walk up to a viewpoint where guests saw an iceberg graveyard on the far side of the island. As usual, the second landing was after lunch after the ship repositioned late in the afternoon. Those who chose to get their last taste of the Antarctic land experience had an opportunity to walk on Yallourn Island. Guests saw birds, penguins, and seals, and they took the opportunity to take their last photos setting foot on an Antarctic island. After the last landing, the ship finally turned around and began its long return journey home. Day 8. Now that the cruises, landings, and animal watching was behind us, we took the opportunity to relax on day 8. The ship navigated towards the Drake Passage during the day, and for the most part, the waters during the day were relatively calm. The ship took advantage of this downtime by providing expert lectures throughout the rest of the day. One lecture was on the daily bridge operations given by a few of the ship's officers. Another lecture was given by one of the crew members who told a riveting and entertaining story about her inspiring tale skiing to the South Pole. And the last lecture was a sort of Q&A to get us ready for the next morning's departure. Our lectures were then followed by a very entertaining charity auction where items such as stuffed animals, a science crew navigation map, and future excursions like an African safari was auctioned off. Last, we all enjoyed captain's cocktails while reviewing our past week's journey on a slideshow that included video and image footage captured by the ship's photographer. It was right after dinner around 7 p.m. when the seas got rough again, alerting us that, we were once again in the Drake Passage. Unfortunately, a few people earled their dinner on the ship's decks during the walk back to their rooms as the waves rocked the ship from side to side. I ended the night by drugging myself with Dramamine and Advil PM, and then I slept like a baby. Day 9. On Thursday morning, we finally made it back to the port of Ushuaia after 8 long days spending time on board a cruise ship in one of the most remote regions of the world. My disembarkation went really smoothly since I traveled with Road Scholar, and as I explained in the first video in this series, Rose Scholar took great care of all of the details. We all had to put our packed luggage outside our room doors by 4 a.m., so most of us put them outside our doors before going to bed the evening before. By the time we awakened and left the room for breakfast around 7 a.m., our luggage had already been taken by ship's crew, staged, and ready to be loaded onto our bus when it arrived. After an early morning breakfast, our trip leader had us all meet in one of the ship's lounges until our bus was called over the ship's announcement speaker. When the Rose Scholar bus was called, we all casually walked off the ship, verified our bags were staged and ready for loading onto the bus, and then we walked to our bus seats. When the Rose Scholar bus left the pier, we were all driven back to the last hotel that we had stayed in prior to coming on board the ship. We waited at the hotel until our bus was ready to take us to the airport around 1 p.m. and we were chartered to the airport for a flight that took us to Buenos Aires before our last flight leg back to Miami. Still, our Rose Scholar trip leader, Nicole, was not finished with us. Before departing Buenos Aires, all Rose Scholars were tastefully escorted to an empanada bar called El Mayoro. This was our last day dining together and it was bittersweet. We ate from a selection of different home-cooked fresh empanadas, shared a few glasses of Argentinian red wine, and said our final goodbyes to our trip leader. My time spent with Rose Scholar, one of my best friends, and in Antarctica was truly an amazing experience, and I'm glad I had the chance to take part in it. Knowing what I know now, if I had to make the same decision to spend $15,000 on this trip or do something else with the money, would I make the same decision? The answer is a resounding most definitely yes. I really enjoyed my time with my Rose Scholar friends and everyone I met while living on board the MV Ocean Victory. And for this reason, I'll be joining Rose Scholar again on a trip to Greece in the very near future. If you're interested in joining Rose Scholar on an adventure, remember to check them out. And maybe you can join me on my trip to Greece. Or if you have no desire to go to Greece but want to know if Rose Scholar is consistent in their service across trips, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified when I do document my Greece trip. In the meantime, thanks for watching. And as always, be safe and go travel. You have everywhere to go see.